You know, while we're talking about BYOD, I'd like to make a motion that we approve BYOD for implementation for grades 2 through 8, beginning on October 1st of 2012, giving the administration time to have informational meetings with parents during that September timeframe after school starts. So that's my motion.
Like they did.
Second the motion.
We had voted as a board that we would not take a vote until they had them come before. Are you aware of that?
I actually reviewed the motion, and if I could, it's in that May 31st packet, and it says, G. Pearl motion that the board commit to scheduling a public forum prior to any action taken by the board regarding BYOD. And I believe we've committed to having a public forum.
Dana, it was clearly my intention, and I think that is reflected in that motion, that we wouldn't take any action until after a public forum had been concluded.
Well, again,
and we have not picked a date for a public forum even. And what would be the purpose of having a public forum about our decision making if we have already made the decision?
well, the fact that I supported, by the way, a public forum.
That's why I'm surprised that you're making this motion.
And I'm always open to hearing from the public. And you know, the fact that we implement any program doesn't mean that things can't be refined and changed as we move along. You know, we've seen surveys on this program. We've seen video here of students talking about the program. I'll tell you, I've heard no negatives on the program. We've heard some minor issues, a lost device, and that were found, lost devices that were found. And again, I've heard nothing. Still very open to a forum.
But Dana, you may not have heard anything because we haven't had a forum. I am just totally blown away here because you were on board that we would have a forum before we took any action, and your motion is in total contradiction to what you voted for.
Well, I disagree.
You don't think that voting to implement BYOD tonight is an action?
Absolutely, it's an action.
And we agreed to have a forum before we took an action.
I'll read it again. G. Pearl motion that the board commit to scheduling a public forum prior to any action taken by the board regarding BOD. We had a motion to pass that we were going to have a public forum. The board committed to having a public forum.
Well, I would like to check that, because as we've seen here tonight, we do not have verbatim minutes. We do not have verbatim readout. And I think, Dana, it is clear that that motion, the intention of that motion was to have a public forum. That is why at the 5th meeting, we spent time here trying to come up with a date. We talked about that a forum during the summer wouldn't be a good thing. That was the discussion that this board had, and I'm really surprised at this point, you know, that you are now making a motion to go against the action of this board. And I think it's clear, and I think you're playing semantics if you want to try to twist my motion into that, because I can now tell you clearly what my intention was to conduct a forum before the action. And I will give you my word on that. I'm not making that up. And that's clearly my honest intention. If you decide to go against that, you will do that knowing what my intention was with the motion, and I believe the way the motion was really made. Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we schedule a public forum concerning BYOD sometime before we vote on it.
Sometime before what?
We vote on it. If I can get a second, I'll speak to it.
Excuse me a second.
I just think that it's important for us to invite the public in and to hear all the views about the program before we go ahead and take such a big step.
Any other discussion?
Any kind of like format?
I didn't want to take a lot of time tonight. I wanted to ensure that we would be able to have one, and then maybe next Tuesday, we can decide when, or between now and then, or how, or so forth.
I can say I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I'd like to, maybe wait until then and hear more about it. Again, I'm all for format. It's one thing saying you're going to have a forum, but it's another to have it set up and run smoothly. So again, I'd like to wait and hear what the overall plan is before I decide one way or the other.
Well, my concern is that the calendar is running out very quickly, and my thought was if we agreed to have one, then maybe we could send out the meeting wizard, we could try to find a date, and then by next Tuesday, maybe we could actually set that date, because soon school will be over, and I think if we are trying to invite the public into July, it's going to be tough to get anybody to show up. So my thought was maybe by getting it started now, we could finalize it on Tuesday. I'm open to the format. I didn't prepare a format because I don't have a particular preference.
Just if I could, Carol, there's a motion on the floor for a public forum, to have a public forum for BYOD. And we're in the discussion phases of that motion right now.
And it was before we vote on it, was there, like you said, I missed, did you say to have one before we vote on it as a board?
Yes, I wasn't picking a specific date or
Right,
anything,
right,
just
before,
before
yeah,
we would
yeah.
bring it to a vote.
I'm probably very much in favor of the BYOD program. I'd probably have to vote no tonight if we're going to make that decision before public forum.
I'm also in favor of the BYOD program, and I do believe also, just because if we vote for it now and we then have a public forum and something comes up, that we can refine and make changes, like you said.
I've tried to work with this board, and I've tried to really come together as a group here. And Dana, I really cannot believe what you're saying tonight. There are issues out here that are being discussed in the public now about security. BYOD is a emerging thing. There is not a lot of history. We need to find out about it. It has security issues. I've talked to police officers that have issues about this. We need to have a public forum before we make a decision. What is the problem if you're saying we're going to have the public forum and then we're going to reverse it? We need the confidence of these people. This board has made this mistake before. We got it right with the public forum for high school. We had a forum, people came, and that was considered. I thought we were moving down that road now. And this, to me, after sitting here the other night and deliberating and going through a meeting wizard and trying to figure out when we could have this forum, this is totally a hijack. And if you think that this is working with the will of what was said here, you're sorely mistaken, me. So you can vote however you like, but I'd just like you to know that was not my intention. I don't think it's the expectation of the people that we serve, and I don't think it serves best. You say you haven't heard about any problems because we haven't had a forum. There have been problems. We have not received any report of any educational benefit to this. We need to consider the educational benefit to adding anything to our school. We haven't had questions answered tonight about security. So there's a host of issues here, and if we could have a forum, and whichever way this went, then it would be the will of this board and the people. But what we're doing tonight is taking this board back a step. And if that's what you want to do, and you have the votes, then you can go ahead and do it. Thank you.
Well, I disagree with most of what you said, and I'll tell you, you're talking about issues. I believe the questions you asked were answered. I heard the answers. And I'll tell you, I have, known Matt now for, well, I won't say how long it's been because I don't know, but I tell you, I support Matt. I think he's done a wonderful job with the technology program for the Hooksett School District. He's had, seems like hundreds of questions sent his way on BYOD. I believe he's answered them all. He may not have answered them to the satisfaction of those asking, but he's answered everyone. I've heard nothing that tells me that there are any issues. There's been questions about security. There've been answers about security. And you know what? We committed to making a decision on this program when we implemented the pilot program. We were going to do it for the 11-12 school year, and then we were going to make a decision. Again, I am all for a forum. I can tell you, I don't like the comparison to a hijacking. I take exception to it. Because if you go back and look at the record, before you were a board member, I'm doing exactly what we committed to.
May I?
Yes.
This isn't about Matt Woodrow. And it's not about whether we think that Matt Woodrow's abilities as a tech director are good. We're an oversight board for the school district. We're supposed to ask questions. We're supposed to consider questions. We're supposed to consider the public. These are all things that should come into this decision. And to sit here and to say that because you've known Matt for so many years or something, that has really nothing to do with it. This is a choice that we're trying to make for this district. This is not whether Matt's right or Matt's wrong. This is whether we want BYOD or whether we don't. And more than that, it's whether they want BYOD or they don't, because it's their kids. And we're only here to oversee that. So whenever we can go on the side of the public to hear them and to hear what their concerns are. There may be concerns that you haven't heard that would be very important for you to hear at this point. One thing I can say throughout this BYOD pilot, that the discussion among the public has evolved and many different things have come up about security and different ways of doing things that weren't apparent at the beginning. So now to say that because you committed at some other point to make a decision tonight, even though we were in agreement that we would have a forum first, and I will stick with that first, because I think that was clear in the intention. Yes, I would say it's hijacking, Dana, and I would say we're not serving the best interest of the people that voted for us, whether you vote for it at this point, or whether you vote against it. Because we're not going to hear them before we vote. We're not going to have a forum, we're not going to have anybody come up and talk about anything. You're going to vote now.
Tricia?
Having been on the board when Bring Your Own Device program was instituted, the premise of it was children were already bringing some devices in a cell phone that they kept in their bag, so when they got home they could tell their parents where they were. And Bring Your Own Device puts the decision on whether the device comes to school or not in the hands of the parents, not the administration saying you can't have a cell phone if your child. If you can't have a cell phone because the school says you can't have a cell phone, and a parent who's concerned about their child who has to walk a distance home from school, isn't sure what time their after-school activity gets over, it gives them a little leeway. You know, when they get off the bus, they can call their mother and say, I'm off the bus, and they're not in danger of being in trouble when they're in the building that the phone is in the bottom of their backpack. It puts the decision whether you bring a device, just because we have a BYOD program doesn't mean every kid has to bring their own device. It's up to their parents to parent them. That's not the job of the Hooksett School District to parent children. It's to educate children. And if you have a concern as a parent about your child's ability to handle an iPod at school or an iPad or a laptop, then make the decision not to bring it. I know numerous children who are above average readers that are not reading in school because of negative peer pressure, that they want to read a 1,000-page book, and everybody's like, what you reading that for? So the use of a Kindle or a Kindle Fire eliminates that pressure and lets the kid find their own way and read the books they want to read instead of answering questions. So a parent can still say no to their child, can't bring the device.
If I could, you brought up a good point, Dave, and Matt, I apologize. I should not have named you. I have complete confidence in the technology program here. Matt Woodrow is the leader of that program, and as the leader, I named him, and I shouldn't. You're right, it's not about him, it's about the technology program for the Hooksett School District. I think it's moved in a very positive direction over the past few years, and I've been very pleased with it. Do I have confidence in it? Absolutely. Do I have any reason to believe there's a problem with it? No. Will I listen? Will I listen to the public and make decisions based on public input? Absolutely.
Well, I have confidence in the teachers, and 18 of 19 teachers supported the program. One was ambivalent, but again, what's the rush if I'm probably in support of the program, but if it's not going to start till October, you said, or meetings in September, we have to, what's the rush in doing this right now instead of waiting until we get some more public input?
First of all, none of the things that Mrs. Corcus said rely on BYOD as far as the child after school with the backpack and the cell phone, because the Hooksett School District has always tolerated kids having cell phones in their backpack if they don't take them out. So as far as being picked up and meeting and so forth. I would also say that we do provide readers as far as iPads, and we would probably be going in that direction. And I am not talking about the Hooksett School District technology policy. That's not on the table. It is BYOD that we're talking about. Some of the issues that I was hoping we would have a chance to talk about with the public were those of liability. There's been a video made of the Pauley cafeteria showing all the kids, and the video ends with machine gun fire that's been laid over the video of all the kids. Now, the liability of this stuff getting out of the school and getting up on the web is not within the control of this district. You cannot expect someone to go into the Pauley caf and know that those things are not happening if it's perfectly acceptable to have devices out and using them. And these are some of the issues that I think we need to talk about, because those liabilities are spread between the school, the parent, and in today's environment of bullying and school violence and so forth, some of the things that we would have done when we were kids are now chargeable offenses. And we need to look at these things and decide. I also think if we're going to approve a policy for BYOD, we should make a policy. We should not just say it's going to be allowed. Are we in favor of kids using devices in the lunchroom to play games? Personally, I'm not. I would not support that, but we haven't even looked at a policy to determine what types of things we're okay with and what types we're not. So this is being rushed at this point for something that was being, I thought, was going to be brought in front of the public. And, to end my statement, it doesn't really matter if we're talking about BYOD data or the technology. What we're talking about here is a commitment to serve the public. I think it's pretty clear for the people that were here, we made a commitment to have a public forum with them. Yay or nay, however this thing went. And if I was sitting out there, I would be pretty disappointed about the people sitting right up here. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of approving the motion as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Have a
Opposed?
roll call vote, please.
Joe?
Aye.
Aye.
Tricia Corcus, aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Next item.